Ever wondered why no one could defeat Napoleon, the French military genius who made Europe tremble? Our story begins on the sun-drenched island of Corsica, where in 1769 a child named Napoleon Bonaparte was born. Napoleon's early life was far from the grandeur of his later years. He came from a middle-class family, his father was an attorney and his mother was a homemaker. But even as a young boy, Napoleon showed signs of the extraordinary mind that would one day reshape Europe. In the tumultuous years of the French Revolution, Napoleon's star began to rise. He was a man of ambition, a man with a vision, and he saw in the chaos of revolution a chance to seize power. It was during these years that Napoleon began to reveal his military genius. His strategies were innovative, his tactics were ruthless, and his leadership was nothing short of inspiring. He had a unique ability to rally his troops, to make them believe in the cause they were fighting for, and to lead them to victory after victory. Napoleon's rise to power was swift. In 1799, just 30 years after his birth, he seized control of the French government, declaring himself first consul. This was a turning point in French history, setting the stage for Napoleon's reign as emperor. It was during this time that he would implement his grand vision for France, a vision that extended far beyond its borders. Napoleon was not just a military genius, he was a visionary leader. He introduced civil reforms that would shape the future of France, such as the Napoleonic Code, a set of laws that still forms the basis of French civil law today. He expanded the French Empire, conquering much of Europe and spreading French influence across the continent. Napoleon, a man of humble beginnings, rose to command a nation and conquer continents. But how, you may ask? To understand that, we must delve deeper into the life and strategies of this extraordinary man, this unconquerable emperor, Napoleon Bonaparte. What set Napoleon apart were his military strategies, tactics that were far ahead of his time. Strategies that not only shaped the outcome of his battles but also changed the course of warfare forever. Let's start with the divisional system. Before Napoleon, armies were typically organized into large unwieldy blocks which were difficult to maneuver and coordinate. Napoleon, however, broke his army down into smaller, more flexible units. Each division was a self-contained mini-army, complete with its own infantry, cavalry, and artillery. This allowed for greater mobility and versatility on the battlefield, and gave Napoleon a crucial edge over his rivals. Then there was Napoleon's masterful use of artillery. He was one of the first military leaders to truly grasp the power of these devastating weapons. Instead of scattering his cannons across the battlefield, he would mass them together to create a concentrated wall of fire. This grand battery could punch holes in enemy lines, creating chaos and confusion that his infantry and cavalry could exploit. But Napoleon's genius wasn't just in his tactics, it was also in his leadership. He had an uncanny ability to inspire his troops. He would often be seen at the front lines, sharing the dangers and hardships of his men. His speeches were fiery and passionate, stirring the hearts of his soldiers and filling them with a burning desire to win. And when they did win, he made sure to give them the credit, fostering a fierce loyalty that made them fight all the harder. These strategies, innovative and brilliant as they were, weren't the only reason for Napoleon's success. He was a master at adapting to the circumstances, changing his plans on the fly to take advantage of any opportunity. He was always thinking, always planning, always looking for the best way to achieve his goals. This ability to adapt, to innovate, was what truly set him apart. Napoleon's strategies were brilliant, but it was his ability to adapt and innovate that truly made him invincible. Napoleon was not only a strategist but a master tactician, who knew when to strike and when to retreat. Consider the Battle of Austerlitz, a shining example of Napoleon's tactical prowess. Here, he capitalized on the element of surprise, turning a seeming disadvantage into a decisive victory. The Austro-Russian forces, confident in their superior numbers, were caught off guard as Napoleon struck at the crack of dawn. He cleverly used the foggy morning to veil his troops, launching a surprise attack that left the enemy scrambling. Then there's the Battle of Waterloo, a different story, but still a testament to Napoleon's tactical genius. Despite being outnumbered and outmaneuvered, Napoleon managed to hold his own. He turned to the very elements, using the muddy terrain to slow down the British and Prussian forces. This bought him precious time, proving once again that a good tactician does not merely rely on brute force, but knows how to use the environment to his advantage. But it wasn't just about surprise attacks or using the terrain. Napoleon had an uncanny ability to exploit his enemy's weaknesses. He was a keen observer, studying his adversaries meticulously, understanding their strengths, and more importantly their vulnerabilities. He knew how to strike where it hurt the most, a trait that often gave him the upper hand in battles. His strategies were not just about winning battles, they were about winning wars. Napoleon was a master at conserving his resources. He knew when to press on and when to pull back. He understood that sometimes retreat was not a sign of weakness, but a tactical move, a way to regroup and strike back with renewed vigor. But let's not forget, Napoleon was a human, not a god. He made mistakes, took risks, and yes, he lost battles. His strategies and tactics, though brilliant, were not foolproof. He was a man playing a high-stakes game, a game that would eventually lead to his downfall. Yet despite his military genius, Napoleon was not invulnerable. Even the greatest of empires fall, and so did Napoleon's. But what led to his downfall? The sun that once shone brightly on Napoleon's empire began to set with his disastrous Russian campaign. The year was 1812, and Napoleon, brimming with overconfidence, set out on an expedition that would mark the beginning of his end. Napoleon's ambition was as vast as the Russian terrain he sought to conquer. But as the saying goes, pride comes before a fall. His overconfidence led him to make decisions that would prove to be catastrophic. He grossly underestimated the Russian army and the harshness of the Russian winters. This lethal combination of overconfidence and underestimation was the first nail in the coffin of his empire. As Napoleon marched deeper into Russia, he met with an enemy he had not prepared for, the merciless Russian winter. The frigid temperatures and snowstorms were a far cry from the temperate climate of France. His soldiers, ill-equipped to handle the harsh conditions, began to fall like dominoes. Meanwhile, the Russians, aware of their home ground advantage, employed a scorched earth strategy. They retreated further into the country, burning crops and villages along the way. This left Napoleon's Grand Army without supplies in a land that was as alien as it was unforgiving. Starvation and cold took a heavy toll on his men, decimating their ranks. Despite these setbacks, Napoleon pressed on, his determination unwavering. But his empire was already crumbling. His once invincible Grand Army was reduced to a mere shadow of its former self, and his dream of conquering Russia remained just that, a dream. In the end, Napoleon's overconfidence, the brutal Russian winters, and the clever scorched earth strategy of the Russians led to his downfall. His empire, which once seemed invincible, collapsed under the weight of its own ambition. Napoleon's fall from power was as dramatic as his rise, but his legacy lives on. Napoleon, the man, the myth, the legend. His legacy is still felt today, centuries after his death. Napoleon Bonaparte, a name synonymous with military genius and political prowess, left an indelible mark on the world that extends far beyond the battlefields. His strategies and tactics, a blend of audacity, speed, deception, and an understanding of his enemies, remain a cornerstone in military education. From West Point to Sandhurst, cadets pore over his battles, gleaning insights from Austerlitz, Jena, and his many other victories. Yet Napoleon's influence extends far beyond the military sphere. His reign as French emperor led to significant social and political changes that have shaped modern France. He streamlined the administrative system, promoting meritocracy over inherited status. He established the Bank of France, stabilizing the economy, and laid the foundation for the modern French education system. He championed religious tolerance and introduced measures for Jewish emancipation. Perhaps the most enduring part of Napoleon's legacy is the Napoleonic Code, a civil law code that serves as a foundation for many legal systems around the world. This comprehensive legal framework, which prioritized clearly written and accessible law, reformed French law, and was adopted in various forms by more than 40 countries on 5 continents. It enshrined principles such as equality before the law, freedom of religion, and protection of private property, principles that are still held dear today. Napoleon's legacy is not without controversy, of course. His autocratic rule, the vast number of deaths in his wars, and his re-establishment of slavery in the French colonies are dark aspects of his reign. Yet even these controversial elements have shaped discussions and policies on governance, ethics, and human rights. Napoleon may have been defeated, but his influence was not. He remains one of the most legendary figures in history, a testament to his genius and ambition. His legacy, a complex tapestry of triumphs and failures, continues to influence and shape our world centuries after his death.